Welcome back to Stranded in Pittsburgh. It's all three of us. Things you thought you would never, ever see again. But nonetheless, Ethan, you missed last week because you're on your quest to visit every Golden Corral in the United States. How'd that go? How many did you get to last week?
I got to about 5, and then I ran into Nate at the fifth and final one. So that was kind of shocking.
That's incredible. Ethan going glasses-less today, too.
New contacts.
Wow.
Trying out contacts for the first time. So new look.
First time.
New look for
First
me.
Timer. Wow.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Well, this guy looks more distinguished every day. Nate, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Been busy, as we were just talking before we started recording, but glad we could squeeze this one in for this week.
Absolutely. Both these guys working hard on the Whippeal playoff coverage down there at the Pitt. How'd everything go over the weekend, fellas?
It was good. Some great games. Pretty much throughout the weekend, there was only one game that was a really big blowout. A lot of closer games than I thought there was going to be. So overall, just a really good weekend. Busy weekend, but it was a fun and enjoyable one nonetheless.
Yeah, it only was exciting for me because I got to sit next to my pal Ethan. He kept me company throughout the 3 games that I covered, so I was happy to see him.
Absolutely. I got to get it out of the way early here. Baldwin fell to Upper St. Clair, and Nate's worried I'm going to roast Baldwin because of why wouldn't I? But actually, they're playing McDowell up from Erie, which is my high school's rival. So I'm pulling for the Fighting Highlanders. Their next game. So, Nate, I hope you enjoy my fandom for one night only.
Yeah, I believe it's a home game, so maybe you need to go get some signs that, against that rival, McDowell. Get some signs in there, go attend the game, watch them.
You want me to go make signs for a high school basketball game when I didn't go to either high school? That's intimidating. Oh boy, I don't know about that one. But anyway, thanks for joining us. Hope you're doing well wherever you are. We do have some big news to kick off the episode. An announcement that I would like to coin as the biggest in this show's history. It's a bigger deal than Ethan finally getting contacts. I've known this guy for 4 years now. Always been a glasses-wearing fella. Nate's looking already chipper about Ethan's contacts, but I promise you that this announcement might be a little bit bigger than that. But anyway, let's get into the details. As you all know, or maybe you don't, a few years ago, when we were still all in college, we did a live stream on RMU Radio. We went to Robert Morris, in case you don't remember that from when we bring it up every single week. But anyway, we did a charity live stream for the Pittsburgh Children's Hospital every year, benefiting them. We got some really great interviews almost every year. The first year was a disaster. The second year was actually really well done, and then graduated, couldn't do it anymore. Slowly kind of built this show back up over the last year. However, if you check our views when we talk about the Steelers and put them in the thumbnail versus talk about the Pirates or Penguins and put them in the thumbnail, you'll see that the audience dips, significantly. But anyway, it's been fun getting reacclimated with everything, talking about Pittsburgh sports once again. And so because of that, we feel like we're in a position where we can do another fundraising event this year. Coincidentally, my 2 co-hosts on this show will not be able to make what I'm about to tell you, but Jack and I will be there, and we hope some of you will join us. We do want to keep this kind of small. Well, not small, but within family, friends, and family, obviously. But anyway, check this out. May 25th, Stranded Sports Open, a 2-man scramble golf tournament here in the Butler area, $80 a player, and this time all proceeds, will benefit the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So that's going to take place May 25th. You can see the details right there. We'll have some stuff on social media, but I would go as far to call this as the biggest thing we've ever done. The golf course has been incredibly helpful in terms of making everything happen and making it very easy for all of us, but we do hope you join us if you feel close enough to do so, or if you want to donate, we'll have information on that in the link, or in the description of this episode. But it's gonna be really fun. It's gonna be a great day for golf. Heard the back nine's a little narrow, so that's troublesome for me if I have to play instead of just be event host. But yeah, we feel very fortunate to be in a position to be able to do this. And we're very grateful for whoever does take the time to come over and play some golf with all of us. And of course, what's the connection? You're a new viewer. I had a Make-A-Wish in 2013, but Andrew McCutcheon. He won the MVP that year, so you're welcome. He promised me he was going to win the MVP that year. Just kidding. No, he didn't. But I do think that I like to think that I helped will him to win that. He knew little Nicky was sitting there waiting for his new liver, and he went on a tear in 2013. But yeah, great organization, great to help out. And once again, we'll flash these details up on the screen for you for the inaugural Stranded Sports Open on May 25th. Going to be a good time. Hope to see you there. Hope the Northwest PA weather helps us out a little bit, but that's never a given. But anyway, fellas, this is a pretty cool deal. Pretty cool deal for us to be doing this.
Absolutely. I'm bummed that that I won't be able to be there, but we're gonna try to raise some money prior to it and help you guys out the best we can. So if you know me, reach out to me as well if you're interested in playing. Same with Ethan and Nick.
Yeah, I mean, I've always enjoyed the one that I was a part of that last year before some of us graduated, which is a great time, great way to raise some money for a good cause. So this one's bigger and better, more interactive experience with all of us, minus me and Nate.
Wow,
since we'll be out that weekend, but great way to interact, some good camaraderie with one another. So it should be a great time, and can't wait to raise some money for Make-A-Wish.
absolutely. Always good to help out. Always good to give back. I haven't told you what we're going to actually talk about in this episode. Talk about the Steelers, Dionte Johnson trade, maybe. We'll see. Penguins are hitting the doomsday button. We'll talk about that first. So hold your horses if you're here to hear Nate talk about the Penguins while Ethan and I nod our heads. Do a little Pirates spring training roundup, and then we'll get out of here. Quick little Monday episode for all of you to enjoy. But anyway, seems like we talk about this every time we talk about the Penguins. And it seems like I say that every time we talk about the Penguins. But now, more than ever, it feels like these storylines might finally reach their conclusion. Is this the end of the road for Jake Gensel? Is this the end of the road for Mike Sullivan? Is this when the Penguins finally blow it all up? They really have the means to do it now, coming off of a horrendous end to their West Coast trip. Nate, people are already writing Jake Gensel's obituaries on social media. What do you see happening this week?
I mean, I don't blame them because it's just seems like the likely choice that he will be moved. Nick, we talked about this about 6 days ago. This stretch was huge, starting with the Vancouver game, and they beat the second best team in the entire National Hockey League. Granted, it took overtime. It took a little bit to fight back in that one. And again, a shorthanded goal scored. So the same situations and issues that have been hurting the Pens all season long still didn't go away in that game. But the Penguins better be offering financial compensation for fans who stayed up for these 10 o'clock games on this West Coast swing, especially that Calgary game and especially that Edmonton game, because they were poor. I mean, they were terrible. They were piss poor was the word I was going to use there. But I mean, in Calgary, out of any of the games, I mean, Seattle, you get shut out, but out of any of the games you're going to win, it's Calgary because they're also sellers right now. They already sold off a handful of players, but you have a 3-1 lead. Way too many terrible turnovers. Letang, I don't even know what he's doing. Ryan Graves didn't help with the suicide pass sort of there on the wall that led to the game-tying goal. But it was the Nazem Kadri goal. I mean, goal of the year candidate. I mean, the Penguins just looked flat in that one towards the end and then came out completely dead, basically. I mean, it was basically over from the start in Edmonton. People were saying, I was reading like Josh Yohe's tweets on Twitter saying that, has there ever been a game since Crosby has played that you knew they were going to lose going into it? Probably never. In that game, they just got smoked the Connor McDavid rebound goal. Jeff Carter looked lost out there. I mean, it was just a rough one to watch. And for those people that stayed up late, I mean, I pray for those people. I hope they're doing well because that's just tough. I mean, this swing is just awful. And the Penguins, I said it last night. I mean, you can ignite the fire sale, and I mean something that as long as us three have lived, we've hardly said. I mean, before we were even really paying attention to the Penguins in our lifetime, that's never happened. I mean, they haven't really been sellers in the deadline since 06. And I know I was hardly paying attention to the Pens at that age. I was, 5? So it's been a long time, but it is time.
Absolutely. And what a way to end a Sunday. You go to watch your favorite team play on the West Coast and you see whatever the hell they tried to do last night. It was a tough way to end the week. I'm glad I didn't watch the whole thing. But yeah, I mean, no words come to mind other than lethargic to describe how they looked yesterday. They looked like a team who needed some sort of kick in the ass. If you're afraid to say piss, Nate, there you go. Something clearly needs to change, and that's, again, Nick classic no does statement. But I mean, you can't watch that game and be complacent and say, okay, we're going to be able to make a run doing what we've been doing for the last few months now. I mean, something needs to change. Whether I think it's about time they call this year a wash. That might not, again, be a very outlandish statement, but I mean, it's time to start selling. There's no time to wait now. Obviously, the deadline's almost here anyway, but I mean, last night was all the proof you needed that this year's probably not going to be the year. And so they might as well gear up for next year and make that push with this core still around.
Yeah, I think
Nick,
when you...
Ethan, go ahead.
Yeah, I think
that lag Nate's got is
that,
killing poor Ethan over there. Even his contacts can't see it coming.
It's all good. My eyes are starting to water because of how bad that's going. The lag's going. But yeah, when you look at it, Dubas should not feel any resent or any backlash coming at him for what's about to happen. He can move whoever he wants, probably outside of Crosby and Malkin. I'm even leaving out Letang there. He should feel free and get no resentment, no backlash, because the damage has already been done, especially these last two games with how they've panned out. So Dubas should just be able to do whatever the heck he wants over this next week and really set the Pens up to really sell everyone off and then try to piece some things together and get some capital, get some younger guys on this roster that can hopefully bring this core back to at least to be in the playoff race next year and maybe a year after, depending on how much more life this core has left, because they're getting up there in the mid to late 30s. And just I didn't even turn on that Edmonton game last night. I mean, I'm not a big hockey watcher to begin with, but after seeing, I think it was Kingerski that tweeted, he said something along, it might have been Yoey, one of the two, said, don't expect anything else, anything different from Calgary's game to Edmonton, from night 1 to night 2, and that's all I needed to see to not even think about turning on the game on my Sunday night, and just decided to enjoy my Sunday night doing anything else other than turning on Sportsnet Pittsburgh and watching that terrible performance and just seeing Gino score and the score go from 6-0 to 6-1.
What does Ethan Morrison do on a typical Sunday night when the football season's over? Don't laugh. Answer the question.
You want me to? I thought we were taking guesses here first. No, I thought we were taking guesses.
I'm going straight to the source. We're going straight to the. I think you read 50 Shades of Grey. And
no, but I did start. I've been seeing this show on get advertised on Netflix, so I said, what the heck? I'll start watching it. Love on the Spectrum. I started watching last night. There you go. That's what I do on a Sunday night. That's how desperate I am. That's how desperate I am before March Madness kicks off. I've got a couple of weeks. Let's get some episodes binged. There's only 6 episodes in season 1. I think I watched 3 last night. We're going to get through season 1. We're going to get to March Madness. We're going to go from there. That's what he did last
I
night.
started giggling because I thought you were going to say Love is Blind, and I just could not imagine Ethan Morrison watching.
I saw that on there as well, and I was very intrigued.
That's where I thought you were going. I saw a trailer for Love on the Spectrum or whatever the actual name of it is, and I hope it is as wholesome as I've made it out to be in my head.
It is, but it's crazy to see those. I mean, this isn't a freaking reality TV show review podcast, but it's a good show. It's a good show. There are awkward moments in there, but it's very wholesome.
I hope it's wholesome. I hope it is. Nate, you were going to make a point to what I said 5 minutes ago. Does that point even matter at this stage of the game? It honestly sounded like you were going to compliment me, and I was getting really excited. But
well, no, I was just going to say. I mean, you mentioned the Penguin season had to get back the train back on track, back to the Penguins. You mentioned that this Penguin season you can basically chalk it up to a wash. I mean, when was the last time we said that either? I mean, in our lifetime. I mean, that has never happened. Last year, at least they were competing until the end. I mean, they only missed the playoffs the last like 2 games where they just were no shows. But I mean, this is a point where I think you can really say, I mean, it is really going to have to take so much for whoever the Penguins get back and whatever roster they assemble with these deals that are impending. I mean, it's going to take so much to even sniff a playoff spot because now they're really looking on the outside in. At least a week ago at this point, we were saying, okay, they're 7 points behind with 4 games on hand on the Flyers. So like there was still some positivity and optimism, but now it's like, oh boy, now you really, luckily though, those 4 games this past week were in the Western Conference. So that's the only thing really going for them to say anything, but the way they played, I mean, it's like watching Kenny Pickett throw football. I mean, there's not a there's not a way, like you look at him and you're like, how can this guy be, your future quarterback? And then you see the Penguins go out there and look sort of the same way, uninspired, no sense of urgency in the pocket as they're trying to scramble away. I mean, it's a shit show right now for the Pens, especially in that last game, summed it all up.
I saw a tweet and I wish I knew who actually said it. And from like the casual hockey viewer eye like myself, it summed it up really well. Crosby is still Sidney Crosby. He's doing everything and then some this year. Letang has his pros and cons. He has his moments where you're like, I'm really glad we didn't let him go to his little hometown Montreal over there and we ended up paying him and keeping him around. Then he has moments where you're like, oh dear Lord, what's he doing? And Malkin has kind of looked like the game's kind of passed him by. He looks slow. It just looks like he has lost more than a few steps most of the time. That is, do you see them moving Malkin? I know Ethan said Malkin and Crosby, they likely don't move, and maybe even Letang's fair game, but I think there's a lot of pressure now maybe on Malkin as being the weak link here. Do you think they would be bold enough to break him and sit up at this point? Or do you think, again, I don't even know what the market for Malkin would be because, again, he's really looked like he's lost. But, I mean, do you think there's any way they trade him, or do you think it's not even worth it to try and trade someone with that kind of legacy for what the return would probably be at this point?
Yeah, I just don't think there is a return for him that anyone's really willing to give up. I mean, if he would go anywhere, he would have to be a 3rd-line or 4th-line guy. And what they should do in Pittsburgh is probably what they would do elsewhere. He would probably move to the wing, which I think they should just because he's slower and he can't play a 200-foot game as well as he used to. Not that he really ever did play a tremendous 200-foot game because he's always been, a little skeptical defensively. But it would behoove the Penguins to try to stick him on a wing and bring in a different center or someone else that can slide in at the center position and just let Malkin hang out on the wing and play a lesser game at that point. I can't see the Penguins trading him. They signed him to the contract. They wanted the trio to finish out, and he still can do something. Something's good, but he hasn't. Like he has some nights where he looks like he has that extra step, but like he's just a shell of his former self. I mean, right now, as you said, Nick, perfectly. I mean, the game has passed him by. He's not an impactful player anymore. And even that goal he scored in Edmonton, like it, on the broadcast, they're talking about, oh, silver lining, Gino has gone so long without a goal. Maybe this will kickstart some things. No, it's not. No, it won't. Like, he's still going to be struggling to put the puck in the back net and making an impact. And I still don't understand why on the power play more, which has been one of the biggest downfalls of this team this year. Why isn't he just in that trigger spot and Erik Karlsson's just feeding him one-timers? What happened to that? I understand maybe his shot's not as powerful as it once was, but like, why is that just not the bread and butter of that power play for the most part? Like, they don't even seem like they want to do that, and then everyone just wants to pass the puck around. So I don't know. I don't think Gino gets traded. I don't think there's really much of many teams that would want to take him on. So I think he stays.
Absolutely. Penguins Talk, as always, brought to you by Pure Hockey, NHL apparel, hockey gear. You can get it at purehockey.com. Click that link in our bio for more. Get a little discount there. Thanks to our friends at Stadium Scene TV. And thanks to our friend Nate Breisinger for once again strapping on that backpack and carrying Penguins Talk up the mountain. Well done, Mr. Nathaniel. I'm never going to call you that again. Now we move on to Ethan's ballpark. See what I did there? Spring training roundup for the Buccos. A little rocky there in the bullpen. Some guys designated to some minor league roles today. Ethan, why don't you, in 5 minutes or less, just kidding, kind of summarize some of the things that have happened over the past few days. You can start wherever, and I'll hopefully jump in and be able to say something intelligent once you get your piece in.
Yeah, I think to start off, I think just looking at the bullpen and some pieces that have gone down with injury, I think it's a good point in the year to have those little minor injuries, minor tweaks. Dario Moreta went out on Sunday after his fastball velocity. I think it averaged around 95 last year. Dipped down to 88 was his last pitch on Sunday. Got pulled from the game, something with his right elbow. So definitely something to monitor. Hopefully it's nothing long term that will keep him out for a considerable amount of time. And then David Bednar yet to appear in a game this spring training. He's dealing with some arm issues over these past couple of weeks. I guess tweaked it in a workout. So this bullpen and the questions going around, why are the Pirates adding so much? It's honestly might actually help them longer term. Obviously dealing with some injuries now in the beginning parts of spring training. Hopefully they can get those injuries all resolved. It won't be lingering on when the Pirates break camp for Miami at the end of the month. Hopefully all of those guys can continue to get slowly back to health over these next couple of weeks and hopefully get some reps before the Buccos break camp. So it's good to have. I mean, there's those types of injuries now. Just hoping those don't spiral and continue to worsen as the weeks go on, and they can get right and get ready to go for the season. And the depth of that bullpen, just having those extra guys in that bullpen, I think is going to bode well for them over the course of the year. I think pitching was the biggest thing that the Pirates needed to address in the offseason. Obviously, they didn't get a lot in terms of the starters, but I think with the bullpen, if you have those guys loaded up, and even if guys go down with injuries, there's some guys to fill and plug the holes as the season progresses and the season gets ready to begin. I think overall, seeing Skeens pitch today, he got one just absolutely crushed off of a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. I think it's Ahmed Rosario that took him deep. I haven't been able to watch it since, I don't know why, but the MLB and the Pirates just decided not broadcast Paul Skeens whenever he pitches. I know they're doing that.
And then they market it.
But then they market it, yeah. But they do this Rising Stars game, so you have to wait to watch them on TV until March 17th, when the Pirates take on the Orioles. In that young group, get to see Skeens and Jackson Holiday go up against each other once again, even though they've done it one time and Skeens already got the best of them on a nice rollover ground out. But yeah, from Skeens, I think I've liked what I've seen so far. My stance still doesn't change. I still think he starts the year in the minors. I still think he has some things to work on and get those professional reps down there. But I think we'll see him, in no time. I think we'll see him at least by June. Just with the way he's trending and the way that he's working. I mean, he's been working with Henry Davis over the course of the whole winter. Those guys were seen working out in December at Pirate City, and just to see those guys working out, is only more of a precursor that it's not going to be very long until you see Skeens up at the big league level. But obviously, a lot of room to grow there. But in terms of the Pirates, man, are they mashing the hell out of the baseball today? I think 4 or 5 home runs left the yard there in Port Charlotte. Henry Davis, past 3 games, he's homered. I think he homered twice today. Just to see his bat starting to come to fruition. I know it's only spring training and it's a small sample size, but just to see how he has hit the ball over the course of this spring training over these first 2 weeks, I think it's very positive for him to see. I think he has over a 1.4 OPS in these first 2 weeks of spring training. So something that you really, really like to see. If you're the Pirates, Jackson Winsky going yard again today. He's looked decently well. His numbers kind of trending about the same where we saw him last year. But yeah, the big thing was Davis and what he was able to do. And even Luis Ortiz having a good outing day. Only gave up the 1 run that was unearned. Struck out 3, I believe, on the day. Skeens getting 3 strikeouts. That 1 blemish through 2 innings. So it's all about building those guys up and continuing to see how they progress. Mitch Keller's going to go Wednesday, so you're going to get those mainstay of the rotation guys back in and continue to get work in. So it's all about building those guys up. Pirates get another win today, improved to 4-6 in spring training. Records don't really matter. It's all about just working on your craft and just to see how they've done. And somebody put out an interesting stat today. I think it was Austin Warvick. I don't remember the specific numbers, and I know it's still spring training, but I think out of all the NL Central teams so far this spring, the Pirates have hit the most home runs out of any NL Central team. I think the Pirates have, I believe, 18. Cubs have 11. Big goose egg for the St. Louis Cardinals through 2 weeks. Obviously, it's only spring training, and there's a lot of time for that to change. But the Pirates, after a very, very, very slow start in terms of offensive production, I remember watching that game. Who did they play the last weekend? I don't even know who they played last Sunday that I was able to watch. And then even on Monday before Tamar Johnson went deep twice, that offensive production numbers, those were low. But bats have certainly woke up over this past week. 6 hits today for the Bucks. So things are trending upwards, and they're really hitting the ball well. Pitching has been all right as well. So out of Pirates camp, as long as they can keep the injuries and bumps and bruises to a minimum, I think they're going to be really well set as spring training continues to progress. Did I hit my 5-minute threshold?
I think you surpassed it, but I'll allow it. One of my dreams has always been to go to the Indianapolis 500. And ever since Henry Davis was rumored to maybe be starting the year in AAA, he has been on a Linsanity run. So I don't know what goes on in Indianapolis, but I no longer really have any desire to go there because Henry Davis is playing like a bat out of hell since the rumors started that they were going to bump him down and they were going to keep Sanchez or Delay in the bigs with Grandal. It's awesome to see. As you mentioned, Ethan, he's homered in 3 straight games. The bat is where we really wanted to see him pick it up. With all the limbo they're keeping him in terms of where's he actually going to play. Obviously, this year he's going to be catching, not in right field. We wanted him to come out strong with the bat this year, and he's done just that in spring training, hitting some moonshots. You love to see that from Henry Davis, and hopefully he continues it. And I think if things continue going this way, it's going to be hard to start him in AAA. I don't see the benefit of really doing that. But we'll see, I guess. But he's doing everything in his power and then some to start with the big league club. And I think, as I mentioned last week, that's the way to do it. Keep him with the bigs. On top of that, Paul Skeens, I pretty much agree with everything you said. I know this show would be a lot more fun if I told Ethan he was an idiot and Paul Skeens should be in the rotation from day one. But unfortunately, I'm not going to say things I don't believe just to make Ethan mad, no matter how funny it may be. I was a little worried. I thought, yeah, he's the number one pick, and there's probably a case to call him up maybe before the September call up stage. Maybe we're rushing him along a little too bit. But I mean, what has he done this spring that makes you worried if they call him up in the middle of the summer? And I don't think there's been anything really major in terms of red flags. I think he's done pretty well for himself. He's hitting 102 today he hit. Yeah, he gave up the long ball today, but when you throw that hard, that's going to happen sometimes. And obviously, he'll progress better, get a little more movement, a little more snap, and be able to get guys to whiff at those as time moves on and he develops. But I'm not worried about him getting called up in June if he continues this kind of trajectory that he's on right now. One big storyline that I know we've touched on a few times throughout the offseason here is that starting pitching rotation. And we're watching a battle for those last two spots. Ortiz has done pretty well. Bailey Falters held his own. Jared Jones, who I think would probably be a very big dark horse, he's done pretty well in his limited time. One of the only guys I think who's really played out of it is Rowanzi Contreras, which hurts my heart, but he's got a 4+ ERA so far, 0-1 record. I know that doesn't tell the whole story, but I'm not sure that Rowanzi's done anything to really help him get into that rotation talk, and as opposed to one of the first guys out of the pen chatter. Quinn Priester did well in his only outing. Granted, it was short. Not sure what their upcoming starters look like in terms of what their schedule has, but be interested to see what kind of claim he can make. And I'm going to finally acknowledge that Ethan has not moved in like 2 minutes on my screen. I have no clue if Ethan is still here or what, but yeah. I'm excited to see how the rest of this starting rotation shapes off. I know I've talked about that kind of ad nauseum here the past couple of weeks, but it's nice to see so many guys kind of in contention. Ethan has left the chat, and I guess that's a good way to end Pirates talk. Ethan told me before that no matter what happens, if he ever leaves, that whatever I'm saying, he believes 100%. So it's good to know that Ethan's also got my back. But yeah, it's exciting. Again, as we talked last week, Nate, you don't want to read too much into how spring training's going, but a lot of these fun storylines have been just that. They've been fun to watch. Some young guys have done really well, and it's everything you could want in spring training, I think. Get a nice little glimpse into the future, especially when the guys are actually playing at the potential they've been told to have. It's been fun. Basically, the quick way of summarizing it all up.
Yeah, I know we've been hammering the Davis storyline, but it's been fun. He's putting them in a tough spot, the Pirates, where to stick him. But I still think he can slot in a couple of other different places, because if his bat is continuing to pop off, keep him in the majors, start him in the majors, play him at right field once a week, DH him, and then let him play behind the plate every other time, that he's not in the lineup. So he's putting them in a really tough spot, but a really good spot.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I know, Kutch is probably be your DH guy, and then they'll have a good list of other guys that could maybe slide in there. But something has me worried, and I know it's maybe not that bold of an assumption, but Kutch hasn't played yet this spring. He missed a big chunk at the end of last year. I mean, I think there might be more DH openings than we're kind of thinking, because something just tells me, we're not going to get that much out of Kutch this year in terms of how many games he actually plays. But I don't know. We'll see. Welcome back to Ethan Morrison, by the way.
Thank you. I had my moment to shine, and it all froze up on me.
Yeah, well, I passed along your message that if you ever lagged out, you just agreed with whatever I was saying. So we've moved on to the end of Pirates talk here, and now we can talk about the mandatory Steelers topics that come with every single episode. I know what the lower third says. It says, about the quarterbacks and how the Steelers are out on every big name veteran quarterback, basically, that people wanted them to get. But before that, I'll actually take this down so no one gets confused. Dionte Johnson. Apparently the Steelers are open to trading him. I'll go last. Everyone gets their own minute-long piece to give their thoughts on this, but we'll start with Nate. What do we make of the Dionte Johnson? Allegedly, they're open to dealing him.
Well, obviously, I think they're in the market for trying to draft a receiver potentially. Deonte's been here. What was this? His 4th, 5th season now with the Steelers. He hasn't put up any sort of jaw-dropping numbers. maybe he hasn't lived up to, what he was doing early in his career. The last 2 years has not been there. Obviously, that tremendously long touchdownless streak. I mean, just the numbers and the play hasn't been there. Obviously, I mean, he's been plagued at times with drops. So if the Steelers are open to moving him, why not? I mean, see what you can get from him, because there's plenty of other receivers you could go out and get, whether that's drafting or picking up via free agency. But George Pickens, I mean, obviously he showed a lot of potential. He has a very high ceiling right now. If they can keep him calm and not getting into his drama moments, his drama queen moments, he could be a number one receiver for the Steelers team. And if the Steelers are really going to start utilizing the tight ends more and Freiermuth under Arthur Smith, there may not need to be 3 or 4 wide receivers in the mix. You really only need 2 or 3. So if Dionte's the odd one out, he's the odd one out.
I think when you look at this, and if the Steelers are truly all in on Kenny Pickett, I think you need to keep that wide receiver room together. I think even if Dionte Johnson's firing off tweets left and right saying it is what it is, and all of these classic Steelers wide receiver social media moments that we've been accustomed to seeing and probably at this point numbed to see, it's crazy. But I think if you're all in on Kenny Pickett, and if Johnson's one of those trade pieces to go to Chicago or anywhere else to get a veteran guy, I just don't see the need for that. Obviously, you have George Pickens, and I think the big reason why George Pickens has played as well as he has been was because a lot of the times that defense, whenever defense are game planning, they're on Johnson. Those two guys are valuable pieces. They're the top targets for whether it be Pickett, whether it be Trubisky, whether it be Rudolph. So I think getting rid of him, you're kind of back into that spot where they were 5, 6, 7 years ago, however long it has been now, when Juju was given that opportunity to be that number one guy. I think Pickens has a much higher ceiling and is a much better player than Juju was, but you're kind of into that space where if you get rid of Johnson now, that veteran guy, that veteran presence in that wide receiver room, you're drafting a rookie. Now you're going to have to develop him and build him up over the course of the summer for him to be ready, or you're going to be stuck with Pickens and Calvin Austin. And don't get me wrong, Calvin Austin is a good option, but I just see getting rid of him. Yes, he hasn't put up the numbers over these past 2 years, and his career in terms of numbers and what he's been able to put up is very front-loaded. But I still think he's a valuable piece for this team. And if you're all in on Kenny Pickett, by throwing Johnson out of the equation and having to draft a wide receiver in the first or second round, yeah, it's worked out for the Steelers in years past, but it might not always work out, and you might be stuck in a rut. And I think where the Steelers team is at now, I don't think that's what you want to be doing.
I agree with parts of both of what you've said. Typical Nick middle of the road answer. Are they going to cut Allen Robinson is the other deal? If they get rid of Robinson, I'm very anti them getting rid of Dionte. Granted, I know Robinson wasn't that influential last year, but then you're basically going to have an insanely young receiving core, which they kind of already have. But I mean, say they get rid of Dionte and they get rid of Robinson, you have Calvin Austin, who, he missed his whole rookie year and had some flashes last year. Then you have George Pickens. You need to build from the ground up then again, basically. And I don't know if you really believe this is the year Kenny Pickett's going to succeed. Do you really want George Pickens to be your most seasoned receiver out there? He has the talent for it, sure. But does he? I'm not going to say does he have the maturity, actually. That would be silly. Antonio Brown, Juju, all them. Yeah, I don't think the maturity matters. But I mean, I don't know. I would just like to have someone, and you can talk about Johnson's drops and all that jazz, and that's fine and dandy. But I mean, I'd like to think there's some sort of veteran presence in that locker room. and someone you can trust a little more, which leads me to the point where I kind of tend to agree with Ethan a little more in terms of if this is the year where you have Justin Fields maybe available, you have Baker, you have Kirk Cousins, you have all these guys you can put in place in there and make a little chase for the ring here, make the Steelers take that next step. And they pass on all of them because they're that confident in Kenny Pickett. Wouldn't you want the guy you've branded as your franchise receiver on that team rather than throwing George Pickens into the mix? People were very sour against George Pickens last year before that Cincinnati game. And granted, that was all because of how George Pickens acted. Do the Steelers really want a chance doing this again, having their wide receiver number one being that moody? And I know Dionte Johnson has his moments too. I mean, he said it is what it is when this rumor started, like Nate said. And I get maybe that's not a huge deal breaker, but I like to think there's some veteran stability, some big money guy in there, some seasoned veteran presence for Kenny Pickett to trust. And I just don't know if I'm fully behind the idea of getting rid of Dionte Johnson. Is he my favorite guy? No. No, he's not. I still get a little every time. Someone make a gif out of that. Every time they throw the ball his way, because you're never sure if he's going to bat it into the air, if he's going to catch it. But, I mean, can you really blame his bad seasons solely on him? We did have the Mitch Trubisky, Kenny Pickett year 2 years ago. This past season, he had a kind of a bounce back, and that was with Matt Canada on all of them. Can you blame all of this on Johnson? I'm sure there's some blame for him, but I mean, if this is the year where Kenny's going to excel, I would want Dionte Johnson there. I would. But I think a lot of this should depend on what they do with Allen Robinson, who, again, is not a huge integral part of this offense, in my opinion, but I do think you keep one or the other just to have some sort of veteran presence in that receiver room. And maybe that's the totally wrong way of thinking, but I just find it hard to believe that they keep both of them. But I also found it hard to believe that they'd keep Allen Robinson on payroll for $11 million again to do what he did last season. And so far, there have been no signs that they're actually going to get rid of him. So maybe I'm wrong. No, please, don't go all at once.
Ethan, I'll let you go. I don't have anything else really to touch on what you said, Nick. So, Ethan, go ahead.
Yeah, I think, Nick, you and I are, I think have similar thoughts on that. And yeah, I think if you're all in on Kenny Pickett or you're all in of grabbing or in getting a veteran guy like Tannehill, Cousins, even Justin Fields, you gotta keep Johnson. I don't think there's any other way. I just don't think developing a wide receiver as your number two just right out of the gate after seeing how Pickens played last year, his antics on and off the field, and just what he has done, and even with guys like you said, Nick, Allen Robinson, Calvin Austin, those guys, I just don't think there's any real way that you could feel safe and comfortable with Kenny Pickett under center and that receiving room, or even if Kenny's not under center, any of those other guys that are in that receiving room, to say we're more than comfortable with those guys and what they're able to do. I just don't see it.
Or maybe Arthur Smith will hand the ball off 40 times a game and then only throw it to Connor Hayward and Pat Freiermuth, and they'll throw to a wide receiver twice the entire game, and it'll be like 1970 or something. But anyway, Steelers are apparently out. They're out on Justin Fields. They're out on Baker Mayfield. They're out on Kirk Cousins. They're out. They don't want to hear it. It's Kenny Pickett's time to shine. I'll start this one off. Okay. I'm going to get my oh shit handle ready to watch the Steelers season again. I was never a huge fan of the Justin Fields thing. I'm not a giant Chicago fan, so I'm not going to pretend that I am. I've always kind of liked watching Justin Fields, especially in college, and he's had those moments in the pros where he's kind of shown his potential, but I feel like he needs to be in the right environment. Is the right environment Pittsburgh? do you look at the Steelers organization right now and say, yep, that's the place? He's not going to succeed in Chicago, but he's going to succeed in Pittsburgh. I don't know. I don't know if I fully believe in that. And for what it allegedly was going to cost the Steelers, I think that's a hell of a gamble to take on a guy like Justin Fields. And again, no disrespect to him. I just didn't see, as of now, what allegedly the demands were going to be being worth it. Baker Mayfield, that one kind of hurts me. It would have been so funny. The Browns ditched this guy because he tried to play hurt and did a crappy job. Then he bounces around the league. Everyone calls him a bust, and he's going to fade into obscurity. And then he has the year he did with Tampa Bay. It'd be incredible. And I think someone like Baker who plays hurt, and I'm not saying that's like, oh, he played hurt, so that makes him great. No. But, someone who's going to go out there and give it his all, that would fit so well into the Pittsburgh threshold. So I'm a little disappointed. I don't know what his price tag was going to be after this last season. It probably would have been pretty high, pretty substantial. But I don't know. I think that would have been a great storyline. Maybe that's my fault for wanting them to do things for storylines after I made fun of them always drafting for fun little storylines last week. But whatever. Cousins, that's okay. I guess I can continue shopping at Kohl's because there'll be product on the shelves in the Pittsburgh area. But yeah, I don't know. I've made my opinions on Kenny Pickett known. Will I get frustrated if he sucks next year? Of course. We all will. Will I watch and say, okay, show me something here? Sure. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that the Steelers are doing the right thing. They've given me no reason to think that. But I'll wait it out. What's another year? What's another year?
I think when you look at that, and they've said from the get-go at the end of the season that Kenny's their guy. So seeing that they're out on these quarterbacks it's not really any surprise. Is not a real surprise to me, and it was kind of inevitable what was going to happen there with that. But now it's up to you, Kenny. It's your time. You've got your opportunities. You have your shot. You've got to prove yourself this year because there's no other second chance, third chance. You're like on your fourth chance. You got to come out and you got to show that you can run an offense. It's a new offensive coordinator. You got your wish. You got your guys with you. It's your shot to prove it. It's make or break for you, or you're out of Pittsburgh. There's no other option at this point. You're pissing away a very, very strong defensive core if you can't show that you can't move the ball down the frickin' field next year, that you can't throw a ball over 15, 20 yards down the field and make big plays. You saw it with Mason last year in that final stretch of games. You need to show that same type of energy. You need to show that same type of drive and willingness to take those shots and opportunities down the field. You got to show that you can stand inside the pocket and not bounce out and do the little twirl, the pirouettes out of the pocket and run yourself into a sack. I don't like it. I think he's shown enough to where, he might not be the answer here. He might be the answer somewhere else. But right now in Pittsburgh, with what he showed over the course of the season last year, and then with the quarterback play that was in after him, it's all you needed to see. But now he's back. And if you're looking at the team right now, you say, all right, here we go. Might be a frustrating season, but hey, Kenny, you have your shot. It's your time to show to the front office, to the organization, to your teammates who, struggled all throughout the year until about week 16, week 17. And then the light switched. You need to showcase to the fan base, who half the fan base is all over you. Half of the fan base wants you to run you out of town. It's your time. You got to showcase it. It's make or break year for Kenny Pickett. And I'm sure we're going to be talking about this all summer long and in training camp and into the preseason and how he plays. Don't screw the pooch, Kenny. It's time to make things right.
I don't know how to follow up that ending, those last 6 words from Ethan there. But anyways, as a Pitt guy, I wish Kenny Pickett wasn't a Pitt guy. I mean, Ethan, as you were saying, 50% of the fan base, against him. A lot of the fans were like already on his case since he was drafted, just because he's a Pitt guy. I mean, Pitt, like the Steelers fan base is such a heavy divide between Penn State, Pitt, West Virginia. I mean, it's just like 2 of Pitt's biggest rivals are part of the Steelers fan base, so it doesn't help that fans were already kind of on him early, but the other half now, it's finally like the people that are still supporting him. Yes, you want to support him because he's your quarterback for the Steelers and you want to see him improve, but like he has not passed the eye test. His stats don't back it up. I mean, the first year was good. It's not a bad year to start off as a rookie, but this year what he has shown, I mean, he just doesn't look good. He doesn't have the abilities and he just doesn't look comfortable in the pocket throwing the ball. But also, I have to say he hasn't had the most of a fair shot. I mean, he's been hurt. I mean, you could say Matt Canada. You could say this, that, and the other. The O-line hasn't been great. I mean, look, Joe Burrow has struggled at times with injuries, especially because of his O-line play, getting sacked, more than pretty much any other quarterback. But, hey, he's taken a team to a Super Bowl. So if you want to use those comparisons, which Kenny Pickett was compared to Joe Burrow a lot coming out in the draft, but I mean, going back to the main point, the Steelers are all in right now on Pickett. I'm sure they're going to sign a backup quarterback with Trubisky gone, a Brissett potentially. I mean, who knows if they're going to bring Rudolph back? And then still, as we've talked a couple of times the last couple of episodes, they're probably going to draft someone who could be a project quarterback who can also, bring in some pressure on Pickett during the camp. But yeah, it's right now it's Pickett's job to lose. We knew that since 2 months ago. And there's a ton to improve on. And he's probably feeling better that he doesn't have to worry about a Justin Fields or a Mayfield or Kirk Cousins coming in to really battle for that job. But still, he needs to have something lit under him to be ready to go into training camp and for the season.
Spencer Rattler as a Steeler. Just kidding. I don't think he's going to make it there. It sounds like he's impressing people quite a bit. I like him a little more than Sam Hartman, I think, if we're just going to throw out random big-name college guys. But, yeah, I mean, how many excuses are going to be made for keeping Kenny Pickett along? There are none this season, in my opinion. There are no excuses for him. I love the Joe Burrow comp. He makes things happen. His line breaks down. He still makes things happen. Granted, I think he's got Jamar Chase out there. T. Higgins isn't too bad. I'm usually a big fan of T. Higgins, but he's done some things for me in fantasy, which I know that's an awful metric that made me sour on him a bit. He's got Boyd. I mean, he's got a good receiving core. I don't know what I'd say if there's a Pittsburgh's is better. Jamar Chase alone probably makes the Bengals better, but the receiving core, that is. But I mean, the Joe Burrow comp makes perfect sense. Kenny, I don't think has really shown anything where he can put the game in his hands and really make something happen unless it's a perfect scenario for him. And that's what worries me. But you're going to hear about this, as Ethan said, for weeks, for months, for years, until these two quit the show, which could be over the offseason at this rate. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think it's what I wanted to hear. I don't want to sound like typical people just hating on Kenny for the sake of hating on him. But I mean, are we going to look back at this and say, maybe they should have got a little more aggressive? You can get Russ. Bengals are cutting Russ. Why not? Steelers country. Let's ride. This last call. I've been informed that one of my co-hosts does not have a last call.
No, I've changed my mind.
All right. We're almost at an hour, which is absurd. So we'll make them quick. Nate, you're all giddy now, so you can start.
Well, it made me think a little bit. Nick, you mentioned us being RMU alums, so I have to talk about some of the news that came out about RMU over the past week about potentially trying to get some money for a new on-campus hockey arena. Obviously, still in that process, they're trying to apply for a grant that could get them $10 million to help build a site on campus in the next 3-4 years, that would be huge for Robert Morris. But it's a little too late in my mind. I mean, that should have happened 4 years ago. People got cut. In RMU in their first year backs, I mean, both teams have moved on after the first round, or well, the women's hockey won one game in the first round, but men's hockey overtime winners over Bentley. But RMU, I mean, they're trying to trend this program, these two programs, in the right direction and getting this on-campus facility. But it's a little bit late, but hopefully it does come and helps continue this, because in my mind, even though they got back their teams, there was still a sense of worry that give it 3 years and they could be gone once again. But this is the momentum that they need if they can get it. Obviously, still a ton in the works, but potentially a good thing coming forward.
Mm-hmm. Ethan.
Alrighty, since I wasn't on last week, I think for me, I'm going for college basketball. And I don't know if you guys know how I'm going to take this one for a turn, but Duke lost a game to Wake Forest.
There's no way you're talking about this.
Hell yeah, I am.
This is going to be mine, you asshat.
Duke lost a game to Wake Forest last week, and the fans stormed the court, and Kyle Wynapowski kind of injured himself on the court storm. Well, it looks like he just shoved the fan and then tripped and hurt his little ankle, his precious ankle. Comes out, scores, I think, like, 20, 30 points the next game, goes off, was the player of the game, this, that, and the other. Little whiny, little you know what. Court stormings. It's part of the game. You got Jay Billis saying, oh, just arrest them. Just arrest all the fans that storm the court. No, it's a part of the game. There's ways that it's just a part of the game. You look back at the conference tournaments. Back in the NEC, Robert Morris was the conference tournament. Hell, I stormed the court after that one, and I was still in high school.
He didn't even have contacts.
I didn't even have contacts at that point. It's just part of the sport. It's part of the sport that it's what makes college sports unique. You don't see this professionally. You don't see this in professional sports of people storming the fields. You saw that back in the 70s, like when Franco got the immaculate reception. You saw 60-year-old Joe Schmel come onto the field and hug him. So you don't see that in professional sports anymore. But court storming is a way of life in college athletics, and it makes for probably one of the most insane moments. A big spectacle across college sports. But now you see, it doesn't even look like a lot of schools have been saying that, oh, you can't storm the court or anything like that. But hey, you got Alabama. You got them with their landmark security out there doing their...
Oh, dear God.
Doing their court storming practice. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for getting me full screen. Their court storming practice. You see them at the baseline. You see them coming out, and you see them doing their little press. So there's a walkway for the opposing team to get off of the court. You can go back to that 3-shot. Thank you. Thank you for letting me show that. But there's ways to combat court storming and make it safe for these players. There's been other schools that have done that similar thing and build that line of that clear path to where people can get off the court. Players and personnel can get off that court safely and easily. So there's things to be done with that. And hey, court storming, there's storms of brewing. Duke plays NC State. If NC State pulls off the win tonight at home, that court's going to be stormed. And I can't wait to tune in right after this. It's probably about the end of the first half now. But to see NC State storm the court while Wynapowski is winding off the court after that Duke loses another game to a team they should beat, it's going to be so enjoyable to watch, and I can't wait.
Wow. A few weeks ago, I settled in, turned on some ACC college basketball. And what I saw was one of those you'll never forget where you were moments. As I saw a rogue, disorderly group of demon deacons storm the court and injure Duke's Kyle Filipowski. It was a gruesome scene. A trainer or student manager had to run onto the court. It looked like Full Metal Jacket. He guided him off, dodging the sea of black and gold or whatever their colors are considered, and navigated him safely as he played hopscotch into the tunnel. Had he torn his ACL? Had he torn his Achilles? Had he torn his meniscus? We didn't know, but the world waited and anticipated an update on his diagnosis. And then, like a phoenix rising from the ash, just mere days later, he played. It wasn't an if. He was playing. And then over the weekend, as if it wasn't already a miraculous recovery, I see a video of him absolutely hamming down a windmill dunk. It's amazing the leaps and bounds modern sports medicine has taken to heal Kyle Filipowski in the way that they did. The Duke Medical Center is otherworldly for treating such a serious injury with such precision in such a short turnaround. They deserve Nobel Peace Prizes. They should sweep them. Forget about sweeping the Oscars. They should sweep the Nobels, because whatever they're doing down there in Durham is something that we should all take pride in, because one day it might save your life, because they sure as hell saved Kyle Filipowski's. Congratulations, Duke. You have the #1 most hated white guy in America again. It's really incredible how you continue to do this every single year. It really is. It's beyond impressive, actually. It's beyond impressive if you've made it this far. But anyway, thanks for tuning in. Stranded in Pittsburgh. You've been great. We will see you all just as giggly next time. See you later.